They believe for the Dashain festival that you should leave the ground once per year and that blesses your year. Aloha and welcome back to Wanderous, the show that inspires you to go outside your comfort zone, to do random stuff and go to countries and get in all kinds of trouble. I am your host, Andrew Crusoe. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to continue with Kathmandu. We're going to sink our teeth into Kathmandu, and I'm going to tell a little story about why I had come to Kathmandu at the perfect time and why I recommend you go to Kathmandu or anywhere in Nepal in October as well. Come along with me. I also want to extend a big mahalo, that's Hawaiian for thank you, a big mahalo to everyone who has subscribed to Wanderous recently. We've been picking up some new subscribers. That helps drive the algorithm. All kinds of good stuff comes out of people subscribing. And also, you don't miss the amazing Nepal adventures and India adventures that I have coming up. So today I'm going to talk about a festival that I didn't even know was going. I don't think I knew it was going, and it just flowed together so well. I mentioned last time that I had a very difficult first day in Kathmandu. You can listen to the last episode to hear about how I couldn't get any ATM to work. And because of that, I couldn't get anywhere in the city because it's very cash driven. And it didn't help that it was Sunday and a bunch of stuff was closed. So the second day went very differently, mostly thanks to my wonderful Couchsurfing hosts. Now, if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that I really recommend you try this incredible community called Couchsurfing.com that is all built on exchanging ideas and culture and inviting people into your home, and they learn from you and you learn from them, and they cook for you and you cook for them, or they clean for you. And it's this amazing hospitality exchange that's totally free. You're not supposed to give. Money should not be going in any direction, really. The people who get hosted, they will often, if you're a guest, you're expected to do something kind, which I was able to do for my hosts. And I've met some of the most amazing, generous, beautiful, really, like beautiful souls I've ever met in my life on Couchsurfing.com. Previously .org, but they're not a nonprofit anymore. Still recommend. They have since the pandemic, they have a small yearly fee now. It's very small. It's less than you would pay for one night at a hotel. So it's worth looking into. I'll put that in the show notes. Show notes can always be found wherever you're listening to this, either on the YouTube description or in your podcast app description. I think you'll find it. I do put some work into the show notes. I usually link to funny videos that I published about the story I'm telling in a given episode, so that's worth checking out. So let's jump into this little municipality that was quite old. The people have been living there for probably like 1,000 years, called Kirtipur, Kirtipur. Kirtipur was very quiet and very different than any place I'd been to. It was, like I said last time, it was kind of a culture shock coming from Istanbul, which is very developed, to especially going to Kirtipur, where many of the roads, they just didn't have any names. And that's something that you'll find out. You'll be like, whoa, I should try to find out where I am. And there are many roads that don't have names. And buildings will have specific names. They won't have numbers. And many things are figured out just based on landmarks. So you'll have something OPP. The OPP means opposite. This is a code they use. Opposite of the such and such clinic or the such and such temple. And that's how they figure out where things are in many places in Asia and South Asia. So big adjustment. Luckily, the people who were hosting me, as I said, were wonderful, and they made wonderful food for me and led me and showed me some amazing things. And one of my first core memories of of being hosted by them. And I was only hosted by them for 3 days. And we're just gonna zip through the highlights of those 3 days. Most of those 3 days were me just kind of recovering from having no sleep and adjusting to a lot. This was the first time that the tap water, the water coming out of the sink, out of the wash basin, could make me real sick if I mistakenly drank it. So there were some adjustments there, definitely. And, not like it was a huge thing, but, nervousness, frankly, over when I was brushing my teeth, which is a very normal feeling to have if you've grown up in the West and Europe or America. Be like, oh, is it safe for me to brush my teeth with this water? And in my experience, it is if you don't swallow it, right? So it's okay to do that. Although there are people who do get their bottled water and they pour it on their toothbrush, and you can do that. That's fine. But you're going to go through a lot of bottled water, probably. It depends where you're getting your water. I mean, if you have access to a reverse osmosis, RO is what they say in many countries, and they say RO. I thought they were saying Oro, which is something I'll talk about in another episode, where I got very confused. I thought they were talking about the Aurobindo ashram because I was really nearby when I heard this RO. And RO, if you hear RO, it's just an acronym. It's just reverse osmosis, which is the standard for purifying water. Very, very important anywhere you are. But the richer countries will have water treatment plants in the city, and you can turn on the faucet. And even in Japan as well. Japan, the only country in Asia I would probably drink the tap water from. It was an adjustment. Now I'm comfortable using tap water when I brush my teeth because I'm not swallowing the water. You shouldn't be swallowing the water anyway. You shouldn't be swallowing toothpaste anyway. It's a bad idea. Don't do that. But you adjust to it. Your body adjusts to it. And this is the other big thing is I could do an entire podcast episode about microbiome. Microbiome are the little bugs, not bugs, that's not a good word. They're not really bugs, because when we think of bugs, we think of insects, and insects have, 3 body segments, and they have 6 legs. That's a bug. Technically, that's what an insect is. Your microbiome is extremely important, and it's not bugs, it's bacteria, but most of it is positive bacteria. We are very much working together constantly with bacteria that we have co-developed with over the millennia, longer than millennia. And they help us break down all kinds of stuff. They help us break down. There's cellulose, like in the shells of corn and, seeds and all these things. You have to have some help with these little bacteria. The problem happens when there's certain bacteria get optimized for certain kinds of food, and when you switch, because this is true, you can look this up, your microbiome has to adapt. That's one reason why people get ill in other countries. It's not always because they got exposed to listeria or because they got exposed to E. coli, which is very common. I was going to say everywhere, not technically. You're very unlikely to get E. coli if you don't have any animal products around. It's less likely, I would say, not unheard of. These bugs are not fun. E. coli doesn't want to be your friend. Anyway, my point is, read about microbiome. This is not a science show, per se. This is a travel vibes kind of show. But my microbiome had to adapt, significantly. And one of the things that I felt helped me was the pickled foods. So they put things like mango, and fruits. I'm trying to think of various things like vegetables. They make this pickled food called achar, and it's a spicy little side dish. They'll give you a small spoonful of it. If you don't like spicy food, you probably won't like it. But if you like spicy food, you'll probably love it. That's all. I recommend trying achar at least once. Just a little bit, lick it, and you might really like it. Now, people argue about how actually healthy achar is. I think it depends on where you're getting it. There are, it's pickled vegetables, right? But the homemade achar that I was treated to by this couple who was hosting me in Couchsurfing was very, very good. The people who support this show will get some photos of their very pretty and nutritious, totally plant-based, by the way, food on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/HelloCrusoe. That's the word hello, CRUSOE. People who support this show, and I do need to say this every episode because people are joining the show all the time. People who support this show and support my work for $10, just 10 American dollars per month, and you can cancel anytime, they get tons of bonuses every single Wednesday. Usually it's like at least a dozen, sometimes 3 dozen photos and videos and different things from the episode you just listened to. So, this podcast will always be free. I mean, there are occasional episodes that are very special behind the scenes that go to Patreon, but 90% of these episodes are free. But one great way to support this show so I have time and energy to do it and can, just keep doing this the best way really is to go on the Patreon. You can also follow the Patreon for free, by the way. I do release free updates and free photos now and then. And you just, same thing, patreon.com/HelloCrusoe, CRUSOE. The links to this will be in the show notes as well. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a little community that we're building, and it's really a lot of fun. So I hope you'll do me a favor and check it out. When you do, you also see a lot of the bonuses you get. I think it's like over 25 hours of audiobook material now. So you hear kind of what is the prequel to this podcast, a book series called 10,000 Hours in Paradise. That's all about how Hawaii completely changed my life. It's kind of like a Eat, Pray, Love, but not really. It's different. But it's a personal growth, travel, intense, coming of age memoir. And it's very personal about my life. And it's really fun. The first book has received over 450 positive ratings on Kindle now. I'm really, really thankful about that. That's 10,000 Hours in Paradise, Volume 1, called Arrival. That has over 450 ratings. So I feel very grateful. I feel very lucky that I made, a couple things that actually really resonated with people. And you get access to the whole audiobook for that. You can listen to the whole audiobook for free. All 3 volumes. It's a 3-volume thing. So all 3 volumes, which is like 71 chapters, all those chapters you can listen to, narrated by yours truly. I even sing one part. Anyway, that's my ad for my own Patreon. But I mean, I would join my Patreon. I think it's cool. But let's get back to why I came to Nepal at the perfect time. One of the best things about using Couchsurfing is that you learn about stuff going on nearby. You get invited to events and festivals that you would otherwise may never even know about if you were just a clueless foreigner in a hotel. And yes, you do save money. Yes, it is a win-win. But you also learn about stuff you would never learn about. The cultural exchange is actually amazing. And yeah, I'll talk about that more in later episodes. But my host said, hey, let's go for a little walk after they cooked some amazing food. They said, let's go for a walk in a few minutes. Let's go. We want to show you something. We want to show you the area. Cool. So, and I make my bed. I got a funny photo of the very large bed in their living room. There's like this fold-out bed. Made my bed, took some photos because we're on the 2nd floor. Took some photos, got some cool ambiance of the area. There's one I really like that I'll be sharing with supporters that's going to be in there. And we start walking down this. I realized that we're really on the edge of the town. So we go up this incline and we were walking through this sort of like sparsely populated area. There are buildings in the distance. And we turn around. There's these huge like structures that have been built from 4 very long bamboo beams, bamboo wood, these long beams of wood, greenish bamboo that have been decorated, painted purple. And they tell me this is Dashain or Dashain. And people say it kind of fast over there. What's Dashain? Dashain is their biggest festival in Nepal. It's symbolic of good overcoming evil, which is something we could all use more of. And one of the things they do a bunch of stuff. One of the things they do is they build these huge swings out of bamboo and rope, and everybody, doesn't matter how old you are, they swing on these big swings. So you kind of just start, you start on your own, swinging back and forth on your own, and then they'll like push you. They'll like help you out. And it's, in the beginning, I'm like, this is kind of strange. Like, this feels like something that am I too old for this? That was the thought. I was like, this is kind of like a kid thing, right? No. Don't make assumptions. When you're in a foreign country, do not make assumptions about what is for a child and what is for you. It's called, I think I'm pronouncing this right. I looked this up later. It's called Linge Ping. Linge Ping is the swing, the word for the swing. And it is a deeply spiritual practice, apparently. They believe, for the Dashain festival, that you should leave the ground once per year, and that blesses your year. If people know, I'm sure there's people, and hey, please tell me if I'm getting this wrong. I want to learn more about this. It's a little bit spotty online, the details about this, because there are still things that aren't detailed Wikipedia entries, believe it or not, like bunkers. And I'm very curious about this. So if you know anything about this particular practice in Dashain in Nepal, it's mostly practiced in Nepal. There are places in Sikkim, which is northeastern India, that also do this. Please leave a comment. I want to know more about this, really. So, of course, and I have very silly photos of this, I'm wearing my blue rain jacket because it's a little chilly. It's like, 19 degrees Celsius, like 60s in the Fahrenheit, 19-ish Celsius. It's also a little bit rainy, but the rain is cleared, and I'm there. I'm the only foreigner there, and everybody's like, you got to do it. And I hand my Olympus camera, which they should really be a sponsor by now, but they're not yet. I hand it to my host, and they take some very silly photos of me, smiling like a child, swinging in the countryside. And those very silly photos will also be available to people who support the show on Wednesday. I was very struck by the ravines and the beauty. It almost reminded me of some places I saw near Edinburgh, to be honest. Some pretty photos of that as well. These ravines and the mosses, and it was very, there was a very lovely sense of peace around it. And they led me around. I don't remember where we were going after this. They were like, we should check out this trail. Do you want to check out this trail? And we went up around, and there are these, hills in the distance, very, very pretty. And the sun set behind us. There were these yellow tulip bulb things I got a photo of. And we make our way around, and the sun sets, and okay, now it's dark. Now it's pretty dark. And we went over a hill, and we ended up behind. I got very turned around. I was very much turned around. We ended up sort of behind, but sort of near where we started. And that was where I had my first official street food, which you should be, speaking of microbiome that I was talking about earlier, you should be cautious about this. Street food is usually where you'll have your most challenge, because it's not always hygienic. It's not always cooked thoroughly. If you do have street food, you definitely want to be sure that it is heated to boiling temperature. Otherwise, you're really asking for it. But even if it is, there's still some risk. Did they clean off the plates well? Especially if you're having something that's an animal product. If it's something with eggs, if it wasn't cleaned off, there's more of a risk for E. coli. Either way, no matter kind of what it is, there's going to be some risk if it's street food. But my hosts were very excited to share, and they knew I did not eat meat. They knew I say vegetarian because it's easier. They don't always know the word vegan, and what a vegan is. This can be confusing to them. So I just say vegetarian, and then I say I'm lactose intolerant, which basically makes the situation vegan. And you just cut out eggs, I suppose. And we had, I want to say it was like a fried, we go in this little small hut on the side of the road, and they're like, no, this is really good. This is a really good place. And they hand us this glass plate, and they made us, it didn't take them long, made us this like flash fried puffed rice with what the Indians would call capsicum, what I would call bell peppers, but spicy bell peppers, with little seeds and noodles and chilies and peas. Never seen this combination before that moment. I'd never seen this combination. And they're just like, no. And we get like, we were handed like little forks, and we just kind of like share out of this big glass plate. And it's a little crunchy, but it's good. And I know in the back of my mind, there is a certain risk that I will have problems tomorrow. But my gut was like, yeah, it was just cooked just now. It's not wet. Your risk is probably pretty low because it's vegetarian. It's a pretty low risk. And primarily also because the locals are recommending it to you. You're eating with the locals. So often, especially people who host foreigners, and this is true just about everywhere, if they've hosted foreigners before, they're going to have a sense of what a foreigner will be all right eating. They'll probably recommend something different to their friends who grew up in that environment, and they'll recommend something else to a foreigner if they are a shrewd host, an intelligent host. And that's why it's good to read people's references on Couchsurfing, because if someone only has one reference, they don't have as much experience. I think it was the next day I started wandering around the area. You know, they had work. Actually they were off because of Dashain. That's right. So it was really perfect timing. I just remembered that. But I did a few little explorations of my own and started looking at these. There's a very interesting moment I captured with dozens of bells hanging from chains off of this small temple. One thing you'll notice, and this is still true, the smallest temples I've ever seen in my life I saw in Nepal. Like literally something that's like one person could fit inside, that can be a temple. And smaller. Some things you just stand outside. It's really anywhere that can be a site of devotion or prayer can be considered a temple. At least that's what it seemed like to me. I'm always open to, that's not my culture, and I'm not an expert on Nepalese Buddhism at all. I was a complete beginner, but what a crash course. What a great opportunity for a crash course. The next day, they continued to cook amazing food. It was how beautiful, right? To be hosted by a very sweet couple who doesn't have a kid. So you know, maybe this has happened to you. Doesn't matter how old you are. Sometimes you just they're taking care of you like they're your relative, maybe kid, sometimes depending on the dynamic. And they just they're my age too. They would make these fried, like, I don't know, they were like cassava chips. I loved them. I haven't had chips like that before or since. They were wonderful. And they would also like saute, they were like soy puffs. And they would just do that with probably canola oil. And they would make this amazing food. They made amazing food. So much amazing food. I couldn't believe how amazing the food was. I was so grateful. I mean, the combination of I like lentils. Lentils are super healthy. One of the reasons they're really healthy, by the way, is because they support your microbiome. Maybe the title of this episode should be microbiome ! But microbiome is really important. If you read about it, most of the dopamine made in your body is actually made in your gut. And it supports, this is just as true. This is why your food can really affect your mood. I've noticed it in so many places, in so many contexts. That's why I'm such a food nerd, is I've noticed how much it affects my energy. It's the whole game. So I'm just a nerd for dal bhat. Again, it's lentils. It's usually cooked in a pressure cooker with spices and veg, really good. And they also will saute potato and, salt it and put some nice spices in there. And it was just, I was like, what is going on? Why aren't there Nepali restaurants everywhere? This food is great. Now, I know that not everybody wants to, not everybody likes vegetarian food. I get that. But this food is amazing. I don't know maybe there just aren't enough Nepali people like around the world just making Nepali restaurants, but y'all need to get around. Your food is really good. That's my opinion. The only place outside of Nepal and India that I came across Nepali restaurants was in Kyoto mostly. And I think there was one in Tokyo that I'll talk about later that was very good. Not so much in other, I didn't see in Nepali restaurant when I was in Kuala Lumpur. I didn't really look too hard, but it was more, they just need more. And of course, being in Hawaii, never heard of a Nepali restaurant in Hawaii. Never really, Indian, sure, but the Nepali stuff is, I think it's even better. That's my taste. I love what the Nepalis are doing. Okay, food rant over. Anyway, whenever I have a great host, I really try to give back, and I was doing what I could. Like I think I made them like oats, tried to make them my signature oats, but I think I only was able to do that once because they were just constantly making dal bhat, and dal bhat is really cheap. It doesn't cost, lentils and rice don't cost very much. Oats probably cost like 3 times as much, but that's why it's a staple there. But when the husband asked me, hey, can you help me take a photo of this form and use your phone and like send it? Because I want to say he didn't even have a smartphone, or he did. It was like pretty old and it was being wonky. So I thought that was literally the least I could do. But it's funny, I still have the picture of his form. I think it was like some governmental form that I don't understand because it's all written in Devanagari, which is the script that they write Nepali and Hindi in, and Sanskrit. I think it's like changed a little bit, but it's mostly the script they wrote Sanskrit in, which is one of the oldest languages on the planet. I think it's the oldest written language, a little bit older than Latin, Proto-Indo. So I can't read all of it. Now I can read more of it, but even just because I can sound it out doesn't mean I know what this word means. Very beautiful script, though. I really love Devanagari. And the whole time we're sort of like trying to help each other out with technology. I always try to give back with technology because I'm pretty good with technology and fixing things. And one of the things we tried to get set up was eSeva, ESEWA. And I'm just gonna end with this. There are many cashless apps in Asia. eSeva is the most popular one in Nepal, and I'm not sure it's worth your time. You can try it, but to have an account, you will have to go through quite a bit of verification, and I would not have been able to do it if it wasn't for my Couchsurfing host. He actually talked to them on the phone in Nepal, and he's like, yeah, he's fine, he's here. And because I sent them a picture of my passport, I jumped through all these hoops because I was like, so many of these places only accept cash or this QR code, that's like PhonePe or eSeva. PhonePe is India. Well, PhonePe is in several countries, but it's very popular in India. This cashless QR code system is very popular in Asia and especially in Southern Asia. And I wanted to get in, and the app eSeva, was cool. It would have deals, and you could, in theory, get bus tickets on there. And it even later on would accept my credit card, which was very cool. But it was a little bit unreliable. I used it for like a couple days, and then it said I needed verification. So there was a nice exchange where my Couchsurfing host actually talked to them and helped. But by the time I got to Pokhara, I realized that I couldn't really trust it. But for a while, it was very helpful to be able to pay for stuff. And I liked it though. I liked eSeva because I could track where I was spending my money. And you don't really know with cash. You're just kind of like going through life and giving people paper that we've agreed is worth something. So you have to be disciplined if you want to track your expenses. With cash, you have to have a notebook or a notes file on your device to keep track of where that goes. So eSeva is cool because you can just look up your history of what you're doing, but your mileage may vary. You can try it. I think it's been a couple years since these events. Maybe it's gotten a bit better, but It might be easier for you to avoid it and just carry cash because they revoked my account with no explanation. And it was just, and I was able to get it turned back on, but I was just like, I don't want to deal with this. And I ended up not using eSeva very much after a while because it was a little more trouble than it was worth. That was my experience with it. Anyway, next time on Wanderous, I go to a new Couchsurfing host where I'm in the middle of Patan Dabar Square, Patan. Look it up if you want a little preview of what's coming. This is one of the oldest parts of Nepal, one of the oldest parts of Kathmandu, I should say, probably the whole thing. And it has a vibe. It's so cool. And I was very lucky to be hosted by someone who was like a 1-minute walk from a bunch of cool stuff. I ended up getting kicked out of a Hindu temple because I wasn't Hindu. I think that happened at one point. It might happen in the next episode. We'll find out. I try to do this in order, but it was incredible. And I'm really looking forward to telling you about continuing to adapt to Kathmandu and figuring out which spots I liked and what I liked, and figuring out, just continuing to adapt to Nepal while all the while planning and figuring out the best way, because I gave myself 9 days for a reason, the best bus to get out of Kathmandu and get to Pokhara, which is where it's my favorite chapter of Nepal, is my time in Pokhara. And we'll get to that soon too. So thank you so much for listening to Wanderous. I really appreciate anybody who comments. You can always comment on Spotify. It really does make my day. Or you can comment on YouTube and say, I'm always up for anything that's constructive, especially encouraging things. I appreciate. And also up for questions that you have about any of the places that I've talked about. I will do my best. I will endeavor to answer your questions with care and conciseness. We all hope. Conciseness, probably not concise, but care and depth. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribing to the show is free. It ensures that you don't miss anything that's coming up. And I am posting little clips of this show, the video component. This is the second episode I'm doing this on YouTube Shorts and Instagram and TikTok. And that is because everything is short form video now, and it's really probably the best way for me to advertise this show is to make these reels. So if you do see one of those, I also really appreciate if you like one of those, because those take work as well, and it's a good way to tell the algorithm that the show is good, frankly, and this is a labor of love. And whether or not you support the show monetarily, anything you do, if you just like one thing, I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that you've enjoyed living vicariously through me and learning a little bit about Dashain today, which is a 15-day festival. I'm curious if anybody else has seen the Lingaping swings. They're always 4 bamboo stalks, and it was such a random, delightful thing. There are photos around the web that you can look up that are just really, they're just great. It's a whole playful vibe. That's something that I want to focus on with these episodes about Nepal. I'm surprised my impression of Nepal was like, it was actually a very playful place. That wasn't an adjective. That wasn't a word that I anticipated using for Nepal, but it was a vibe. I don't know what it was. There was just kind of a playful vibe. Maybe because I got there during their biggest festival, that was part of it. But even when I got to Pokhara, and there was this sense of very much like go with the flow energy, and playful energy that I really appreciated, that I really picked up on. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in coming episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Andrew Crusoe, and I approve this message. Hello.